Zhaniya Aubakirova presents a series of discussions about the place of Kazakh culture in the global world. Meetings with prominent public figures, candid conversations, collisions of opinions, and discussions about the most important things.
Hello, dear friends. Today we'll be talking with Kanat Beisekeyev. It seems to me that Kanat Beisekeyev is a great representative of new generation of these very bright and open-minded people who inspire us a lot these days. I'm very curious about the life of our young directors, our creators, because they live in completely unprecedented times. The world has changed so much, and now we're looking at this world through the eyes of the young generation, people like Kanat Beisekeyev. Hello, Kanat.
Hi.
Usually, I invite my peers, representatives of my generation, to this program, and we discuss culture, our country's most significant achievements, and we share with each other our thoughts about life in general. But lately, I've discovered that I derive so much pleasure from my conversations with young people. You and I have already met before, and you know how very much interested I am in what you're doing. And I think this is true for all our compatriots. So it would only be logical to focus on your films today. Where do they come from? Do you choose the topics deliberately, or you rely on your attitude to the world?
You know, many people mistakenly think that I want to re-educate someone with my films, or make some great contribution to documentary filmmaking. In fact, this is all secondary. First and foremost, I do this because I really enjoy it. I make films for my own pleasure because I derive tremendous pleasure from the process. And then, of course, films begin to live their own lives. They find their own audience, but this is all secondary. Whenever I release a new video, I usually feel very sensitive about it. And after a while, when I have already read some comments, got some feedback, I stop thinking about this project, and then I just go and immerse myself into something new. It is as if some kind of umbilical cord is breaking, and I no longer feel connected to my films. Sometimes I even find it hard to believe that some of the films I made 3 or 4 years ago were actually made by me.
Does it happen because you, the author of the film, someone who conceived it and produced it, are changing as a person? Or is it because your attitude to the topic has changed?
Of course, I am changing. And you know, I'm probably not the same Kana that was making those films before. Sometimes I even noticed in the comments something like, "Oh, old Kana is back," or "We want our old Kana back." Sometimes I read comments where my viewers express their disappointment in me. Once I participated in some kind of a Zoom conference, and one of my followers said, "You have to record video lessons. You have to leave your knowledge as a legacy." And I know that my answer surprised him because I reinforced my message, saying that everything I do for myself, not for the general audience. I would have been doing this anyway, even if I did not have thousands of hits, even if I wasn't popular. And actually, you know, I was doing this. After all, I started making films in this genre as a pioneer. Back then,
no one
else in the country was doing this.
And you know, this is probably the right way of looking at it. I once said to one of my fans, you know, I do a lot, both for the popularization of classical music and in many other aspects. And I would like to receive some kind of gratitude from society, some kind of recognition. And she replied, "You know, my dear, these are your ambitions, and you do this for yourself, and no one owes you anything."
Yes, exactly. Many people get confused about it, but you should do only what is important to you.
Doing things for yourself.
But if you admit it sincerely, a moment might come when the thing you do for yourself can become of interest for someone else.
I'm a person who has watched very few films, and to be honest, I'm not an expert in this area. But I did hear from someone that the era of films has passed, and now it's all about TV series and shows. However, it seems to me that those are now going out of fashion too, and there's a growing interest in documentaries. And you are one of those people who entice the public. Is it true at all? Please tell me, does this interest have a global tendency?
Yes, this is a global trend. People are fed up with those glossy, shiny pictures, so the demand for truthful films is growing. Why do you think my YouTube channel has gained popularity so rapidly, and it remains popular still? I think it happened because the audience began to discover real heroes in my works, in those episodes. Look, whenever our compatriot achieves some minor success, people are getting so proud of him, right?
The whole country is proud.
The whole country, exactly. And this is exactly what people feel when they, for instance, see how a truck driver from one of my films overcomes certain obstacles and succeeds on the roads in the United States.
Okay, Kanat, now could you please tell us which one of your films you think was especially successful?
I think that Liberated is a great example of a classic documentary.
So, what this film is about?
This film is about a woman. Her name is Valentina, and she was in prison. I filmed her on her way home, where she was supposed to meet her baby. So while we were on the road, she opened up and told her story. There was this extremely powerful monologue in the film. But unfortunately, this documentary did not receive the audience and recognition that it should have received.
It should have been received better.
Yes, and still I am very proud of this film. It was one of the most serious works I've done.
Before our interview, I did some research, and apparently you have many films. However, not so many people are aware of this fact.
I'm approaching 100 mark or so.
What? Impossible! And for how many years you've been doing this?
Well, since 2015.
How productive you are!
My first film featured Galımjan Molda Nazar. It was kind of an experiment.
Welcome Galımjan Molda Nazar to the stage. Өткен кеткен сұраусыз, бірде қалмас жауапсыз, кеудем жылып арың, қаным жүріп сәнді. Сезіндім тола бойды, жаным тәтті неткен, өмір ақ пен көркен. Қара алдап сұлайды, сеніп үміт түспей, күдерсіз жол іздей, ақ пен бірге болуға.
What do you think?
It was awesome. I saw somebody crying.
Hey man, give me a hug. Oh.
Double cello hug.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, good job. Beautiful.
Beautiful.
Thank you.
Yeah, okay.
My first serious film.
In 2015?
Yes, I consider The Truck Driver as my first serious work. It was a film about a Kazakh truck driver. In 17 days, I crossed the U.S. from the East Coast to the West, accompanying the protagonist. On our way, we would meet other truckers. We visited different cities. This was a kind of a travel road movie based on the story of a man who is in constant pursuit of happiness, who is in search of himself on American roads. And I relate a lot to this film, probably because at that moment, I was also trying to figure out what I want to, where I want to live, who I want to become. And when I finished shooting this film, I realized that I really want to be a documentary filmmaker. I want to tell stories. I'm good at it, and maybe this is what I want to devote my life to.
Okay, now I want to ask a question that has interested me for a while now. Why are certain stories told by some people are not compelling in any way? Even if these are worthy stories, interesting enough stories, which in theory could engage the audience. But for some reason, these stories told by a certain person are completely unimpressive. However, there are also other stories, completely artless.
That leaves a grate.
Simple and seemingly lacking in potential. And still, they capture people's imagination and make their hearts pound. So, what is it that needs to be done with a story to make it interesting? How do you make a story which can evoke strong emotions?
Okay, I can tell you something I'm 100% sure of. It is never enough to just execute film in a proper and technically perfect manner. You see, I have assistants to whom I sometimes give a certain topic, encouraging them to make a film, to act as directors. And then, when they are done, we analyze it, and I often see flaws in their works. I analyze the story. I think what could have been done differently, and usually I come to the conclusion that there is no connection between the author and the main character in their films.
The character.
After all, a documentary is always about the author, and that's why I like documentaries more than feature films. Because in a feature film, you depend on too many variables. You depend, first of all, on the team. You depend on the script, on the acting, and when it comes to documentary films, there is much more that you, as an author, can do. You can do things as you see fit. If you want your film to revolve around the protagonist, you can do it. Everything is in your power. You are an artist, and you decide on what things should be emphasized.
Now tell me, do you somehow help your protagonists with scripts? Do you ever write lines for them?
No.
So they do everything by themselves?
All I do is I try to create this kind of chemistry between us. Does not necessarily mean that we would suddenly become friends or anything, but
you want to feel you have something in common.
Yes, to make us more or less comfortable around each other. I can go and visit my protagonist 10, 20 times
And get nothing.
But when I visit them for the 21st time and finally catch that chemistry,
Kanat, of course, I heard a lot about the film Wife. It has made a lot of noise lately. And also it discusses topics that are now very actively discussed in society. These are topics of domestic violence. Why were you interested in this topic? Is it because of social tension, or do you just in general interested in making socially significant films?
no, The Wife was a slightly different experience. I was approached by the producer, Zhaniya Aubakirova, the head of the Qazaq TV channel. He reached out to me for the first time in March last year, before the pandemic, when I was flying back home from New York. And so I was offered this collaboration. I immediately agreed because this topic, I cannot say that it was interesting to me, but I myself would not approach that topic. Probably because I just didn't want to dive into all this, if I can say that.
That's true.
And to be honest, after filming, the entire film crew, we got sick. We all just got sick from this topic. It was so hard and so exhausting. A lot of things were not included in the film because we decided that it would be too much. Besides, I cannot really relate to the topic. I've never encountered violence.
You haven't?
I've heard about it, but even when I read the news about this, I try not to get too emotionally involved, you know. I just don't want to let it grow in me. And the film, Wife, happened because our entire team was not indifferent to this topic, and we all took it very hard. For the same reason, it turned out to be ambiguous.
Ambiguous?
Yes, in the sense that people have many questions about it. Someone liked it, someone didn't like it. I've already read critical reviews and comments. Many did not like the fact that men were discussing this topic. There are many nuances. But when I wrote the script for the film, it seemed to me that it would be an unconventional movie. that men would discuss domestic violence.
And who else should? Usually it is...
And in the meantime, real tragic women's stories will be told. As an artist, I think I've done my job well, and the film has already got 500,000 views.
So compared to others?
It is a good number.
A relevant topic.
It is very relevant. The film has a large audience. There were many viewers from different countries. Someone also wrote about the film in some English newspaper, so the film made a splash.
It caused a great stir. He gradually started drinking. The reason, he says it's because of me. He says I'm the reason. And I tell him that it is up to the person whether to drink or not. I don't force him or anything, but still, he says I am the reason he drinks. He says he doesn't love us. He doesn't love his children. And in 4 months, I would come back to him 2 to 3 times. I have nowhere else to go.
You wanted to leave?
No, I wanted to come back home to keep our family together.
So you had this hope.
I had this hope until the very end. But yesterday I realized that he doesn't want any kind of relationship with us, with our children. He doesn't want us.
You want to get back with him because you are financially challenged or because you still love him?
I still love him. But that last time, my eldest daughter said, "Mom, let's leave. We can't take it anymore."
Your daughter said this?
Yes, my daughter. This was her initiative. I think your film has changed the public's perception in so many ways.
Contribution.
It has changed people's worldview. And I want to believe that our society is now becoming more self-aware. Hopefully, people will learn their lessons and work on themselves. And this is the purpose of art, isn't it? To change society, to change people, to change, not to fight. There will be too much, but it can make us all think, see the beautiful side of life or see the ugly side, right? And this is very serious. Please tell me, Kanat, do you have any ambitions of becoming internationally famous? To make a feature film, work with a big film studio, get rich?
Yeah, I would like to do that. Why not?
And you can do that, right?
Yes, I can do that indeed. It would be strange to say, oh no, I don't want this. I don't need it. I don't want to be out of work. I don't want to be left without the opportunity to make my own films. Of course, there is an opinion that an artist should be hungry and poor. I can somewhat agree with this opinion, but in general, I am more comfortable when everything is fine finance-wise. After all, this means that I have the opportunity to make my own films, which I pay for from my own pocket.
And some would say that documentaries are not commercially profitable?
Yes, but they define me. They make me Kanat Beisekeyev.
So, you don't believe in this traditional Kazakh thing that says that one must be modest, one must be self-aware, self-critical even?
No, I believe that I don't have time for this. I have to work.
Get the job done. Now, dear Kanat, it seems too premature to ask you questions about the state of Kazakh documentary film market, about whether you feel like integrating and mingling with other domestic documentary filmmakers. Especially considering that half the time you live and work in the US, but nonetheless, from a global point of view. What do you think is happening in the world of local documentary cinema?
You see, the thing that is that for a long time I could not call myself a documentary filmmaker. I came into this genre from the world of photography, and if you, for example, ask me about my favorite photographers,
A bunch of names.
I can list a bunch of names. For me, documentary has become a new genre. I have only been involved in it for the last 5 years. But generally speaking, in Kazakhstan, there is a colossal gap between a documentary filmmaker and his potential audience. Because here documentaries are usually assigned by TV channels and big studios.
And not because of the audience.
Or to participate in some film festivals, and they are watched, in fact, only by film critics. Being a viewer who could potentially be interested in these films, I never get to see them. And this too is partially the secret of my success. I chose a different path.
It was a free niche.
I just started posting my films on YouTube. Once in a month, I would upload my work, and during these 5 years, the audience got used to it and began to recognize me.
Well, for sure you're familiar with some names.
Just recently, I came across a documentary filmmaker. Unfortunately, I forgot his name. This is a Kazakhstani director. He made a film about a colony for juvenile delinquents in the 90s. I watched his work and I was shocked. I was amazed at what a great job he did back then. What he did was such a hardcore. In comparison with him, we are all just children.
Kids.
We're not even close to what he did. And he is a true artist whom we, young guys, young directors, do not even know. I only found out about him because he was present at one of those fan meetings or a lecture to which I was invited. And he asked me very interesting questions. I met him, I wrote down his name. He said, "Watch my films," but I didn't watch them right away. And then I heard his name again somewhere. I learned that he spoke very well of me and my work. I Googled him, found his works, and they were just awesome. I salute him from the bottom of my heart, but I really feel bad that his legacy, or the legacy of directors of his generation, is not widely known today. Oh, I remembered. This director's name is Vladimir Chulkin.
Oh, I heard this name. I don't quite remember his films, but I have heard his name for sure.
Yes, he has a series about children in a colony.
What can you say about documentary filmmaking in the US?
I filmed in the US, but I have never worked with big studios.
So you never interacted with them?
But I have one example, a small insight. Last year, I was among the group of cameramen on the team that worked on a documentary show for Netflix. We filmed in Kyrgyzstan on Issyk. Or was it 2 years ago? I was filming an episode about Kokpar, and the project was called Home Game. I work with a large team in which all directors and cameramen were from the US. Of course, I was amazed at how skilled and professional they all were. I was amazed at their work style, but it is a bit not me. Yes, I saw the difference, but not even for a moment I thought, oh, I want to be like them.
Everything was different.
It was a great master class for me. I understood a lot, but deep down in my heart, I knew that I would have done things differently.
How interesting.
I would have changed a lot. I would have made completely different decisions, and in general, I did not have the feeling that they are somewhere out there at unattainable heights, and we are somewhere below.
In conversations with my guests, I'm always interested in how the interviewee assesses himself, what he thinks distinguishes him from other less successful people. It is a kind of reflection exercise. What is your success? What is behind it? And what makes you move forward?
I just work non-stop. I completely devote myself to this, and yes, this is my calling. I want to film more, and I will continue to tell stories. And how I will do that is a different business. Maybe at some point, I will give up the video format for some new art form. But I will always be a storyteller, I think.
Well, it's a long story, but the short story of it is I was adopted as a child myself when I was a baby, and I've always been drawn to adoption. I had a very good life. My parents adopted me when I was a young baby, and they gave me a fantastic life. And I was always drawn to have an adoption and adopting my own son or daughter. And my wife and I decided to adopt internationally, and Kazakhstan really appealed to us. We just love the culture of Kazakhstan. It's just a beautiful place that we love, and fortunately we found Milo, or he found us, as the story goes, and it's just been a wonderful experience for us. It's just been wonderful.
I've really enjoyed our conversation. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you.